Middle East commentator and director of the Council of Arab and British Understanding, and he joins us now live in London. So, Chris, you must have been listening to what our correspondent was saying there. Do you think Israel even wants a deal?
Which Israel? I think that there are many different camps, and this is one of the challenges that Prime Minister Netanyahu has. He himself, I believe, has never wanted a ceasefire deal. He doesn't believe it's in his interest. He's wanted to escalate. And in that, he has the support of some on the far right in his cabinet, the likes of his finance minister, Smotrich, and also Ben-Gvir. But on the other side, there are other Israeli ministers who actually don't want to reject a deal. They do want to push towards one because they do want to see those hostages released. They actually also are concerned about the state of relations with Israel's leading ally, its security guarantor, the United States. So this all adds up to a very messy mix right at the moment. And I think what we see at the moment is Netanyahu playing both. On the one hand, he's obviously pushing forward with a military operation in Rafah right now. That may not be the massive military operation people fear, but it's still significant. And he's also sending negotiators off to Cairo to see whether there is a path forward in this deal after the Hamas announcement. But ideally, what Netanyahu really wants is a situation where he can fully blame Hamas for what's going on. And with this Hamas announcement, they've turned the cards in on him. They've really changed the whole situation. Everyone is now looking to Israel as to whether it is the Israeli cabinet. Will they make that leap towards peace? Will the United States compel them to do that? Because quite clearly, I think for Palestinians, for much of the region, for much of the international community, nobody can see a ceasefire fast enough.
So for you then, Netanyahu has been embarrassed. Is this all about saving face and looking strong?
He certainly wants to look strong, but I think ultimately he wants to make sure that Hamas is blamed. That's really essential. He doesn't want to be blamed himself. That allows him to save face, yes, with the United States, with his other international allies. And it also allows him to say to that section of the Israeli public, including those who are out protesting, I did everything I could to get those hostages released. It wasn't my fault. It was Hamas. You can never trust Hamas. But we now have to explore what is going on here. Is the Hamas offer serious? Is it the same deal that was offered to them? Is there an opportunity here? Who knows? But it was so revealing to see the way in which Palestinians in Rafah and elsewhere in the Gaza Strip were celebrating when they did think there was going to be a ceasefire. And that shows that level of need in a situation where they are facing starvation, even famine, that they cannot. They need that ceasefire. They need that pause, even if it's temporary.
Indeed, the situation there is very desperate. I mean, the people in Rafah went from extreme lows, fears of an imminent Israeli attack, to then the hopes of a ceasefire. But we were just seeing there pictures of people protesting in Tel Aviv. Does that perhaps bring hope to the people of Gaza, the people of Rafah?
If they can see those images, maybe, but those protests need to grow in size and stature. It needs to shake the whole foundations of the Israeli government. I'm not sure that they are large enough. I suspect that they are probably baked into the calculus of the Israeli cabinet, that they will probably consider most of those who are protesting to be of the left or perhaps the center, not necessarily the people who would vote for them. So it needs to be a much broader surge of support for this. Now, that could happen. And certainly, Prime Minister Netanyahu is very unpopular right now. Very few people trust him. But that is also one of the reasons why he wants to continue. He wants to escalate. He wants to be able to go in front of an Israeli public and say, I've I delivered. I have smashed the entirety of Gaza up. I have taken out all of Hamas's battalions. It's no longer a military force in Gaza. And I promised I was going to do that, and I have delivered. If he can get a few hostages out in that process, then that obviously would help him. But frankly, it's hard to see a major Israeli military operation going on in Gaza, in Rafah right now, that would rescue many Israeli hostages, however many may be still alive.
So what can then shake the calculus, as you said, of the Israeli government? Is it the US, who today, all of the statements coming out the White House have been all about caution?
I think the United States is obviously key. I mean, if the American president was to halt, for example, the transfers of arms, even briefly, he has so many ways in which he can pressure Netanyahu. Bill Burns, the head of the CIA, is in active consultations with the mediators, with the parties to all of this. If he was to come out and say, actually, the Hamas acceptance of the ceasefire deal is serious, that it's accepted a deal that Israel itself had largely agreed to, then also that would change things. That would make it so much harder for the Israeli government to continue prosecuting this military operation now in southern Gaza, because then the whole world would see that, yes, Hamas had accepted a genuine and legitimate offer, and that therefore that should be taken forward. And it's Israel that is the obstacle.